ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। So having introduced the formation of three seers, which is there in the individual. Individual consists of three seers. Those three seers were introduced in verse number 1 to 5 in this Drsya Viveka. And then author divided this mind into two parts for the sake of discussion. And the first part is a substantial part of the mind. In Sanskritam it is called Dravya Amshaha. Amshaha, part, Dravya, substance. The subtle body. It is a Dravya made up of 5 elements. So mind, Dravya Amsha, one part. So it has a substantiality. We can call Dravyamsha, we can call Manodravyam also, like that. Then the second part of mind is the thought that rise and fall in the mind, like the waves in a lake. So lake is a Dravya. The wave is also a Amsha of that. That is, the lake is a Dravyamsha. This is like a Vritti Amsha. So similar to the waves of a lake, thoughts are constantly formed and resolved in the mind. And each thought is capable of coming out through the sense organs and illumining the external world. So Dravya does not come out. Dravya means a subtle body. If Dravya comes out of this, means gone. Only the thought part. Anyway, so it illumines an external world, comes out through the sense organs and by pervading the object. Like I gave you the example, the light beam, well, coming out of the torch light. Torch light is like Dravyamsha, and the beam of the light which comes out is like a Vrityamsha. So basically, and that illumines it. Now, according to Vedantic epistemology, objects do not enter the mind, but the thoughts go out and envelop the object, and we have a prakriya called vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. I'm just reminding you that is a thing. So while Dravyamsha remains in the body, the Vritti Amsha is capable of expanding and contracting. It's a mind, but it's a Vritti Amsha. So Vritti Amsha of the mind basically contracts and expands. Dravyamsha does not contract and expands. So it expands and envelops the object and illumines the object. And it has that capability, well, definitely due to the Chidavasa which is present there. And Chidavasa will be present all the time. Anyway, so this expanding, contracting of the mind, like the rays of the sun, is called Vrityamsha. So this is how author introduced Dravyamsha of the mind, Vrityamsha of the mind. And both the parts basically are inert by themselves. They become sentient because of the Chidabhasa, Pravesha. So we have a Pravesha Shruti in Shastra. So the Brahman, enters into the creation. Brahman enters into the mind, let us say. The consciousness enters into the mind. That entry into the mind is the formation of a Chidabhasa. And just as the sunlight illumines the wave and lake, both, same way the Sakshi, the consciousness, illumines the mind, Dravyamsha, and thought wave also. Now, after introducing these two parts of the mind, the author definitely introduces another subtle point. He said, this Dravyamsha of the mind is associated with three things. And the association with these three things are of different type. So, the subtle, invisible substance mind is intimately associated with the physical body, and the very life of the body is dependent on this mind. The very sentiency of this body is totally dependent on this mind. Anyway, so like that, the same Dravyamsha, the mind, basically the substance mind, is also associated with the reflected consciousness. Is also associated, this mind, Dravyamsha, is also associated with the consciousness and associated with the physical body, which I talked to. So, now the question that is asked is about these three pairs. What type of a intimacy, what type of an association is there? What type of a tadatmyam is there of the substance mind with the three things? The substance mind and the body, the substance mind and the Chidabhasa, and the substance mind and the consciousness, Sakshi. So these three we have to understand what type of an association, tadatmya, sambandha is there with this of a mind, Dravyamsha, with these three things. And we discussed also two parts, of course, are over, but I am just reminding you. The mind material has a intimate association with the reflected consciousness. Physical body and Sakshi, in that relationship between the mind and the reflected consciousness is natural, permanent, inseparable. Any reflecting medium and reflection cannot be physically separated. Therefore, the mind, the Dravyamsha, the mind, and the Chidabhasa which is present there, well, their association is basically inseparable, permanent, we can say. So, as long as reflecting medium, well, it will be there, is present, the reflection also will be present. So, mind will be eternally connected with the Chidabhasa. And there is no time when the mind is alone present without Chidabhasa. Whatever be the condition of the mind may be in a manifest mode or mind may be in an unmanifest mode, all the time there will be an association with the Chidabhasa. Unmanifest mind will have an unmanifest Chidabhasa. Manifest mind will manifest Chidabhasa. That only we are going to relate, this thing alone we are going to relate to the three states of experience called waking, etc. later. Anyway, since this association between the mind and the Chidabhasa is inseparable, permanent, etc., therefore mind always appears as conscious in a manifest state. Always. Mind means conscious mind alone. You will not be able to tell unconscious mind. This is in a conscious mind. And therefore some Buddhist, etc., they thought that the mind has intrinsic consciousness. Consciousness is Atma, that also they understand. But then basically they take the mind, I mean especially the thought mode of the mind, which is also a conscious due to Chidabhasa. they take it as a Atma. So for they have an idea of a Kshanika, momentary consciousness. Anyway, and when the mind dissolves in the deep sleep state and exists in a potential form, this Chidabhasa also remains in a potential form. And they cannot be separated. Now, even during dissolution of the creation also, the mind and this reflected consciousness exist in a potential form as in the deep sleep state. Only at the time of a Videhi Mukti, I talked to you, when the mind gets destroyed, the reflecting medium itself gets destroyed permanently, then Chidabhasa, the reflection, reflected consciousness also gets destroyed. Then they both are separated as though. So mind and ours reflected consciousness or Chidabhasa has a inseparable permanent relationship. This is the first. In the author talks it as a Sahajatadatma. Sahajatadatmam is basically a natural association, inseparable, permanent association is there between this pair called mind and Chidabhasa. The second is of that Dravyamsha of the mind and the body. That association is never inseparable or permanent because the body definitely dies at some point. That shows the mind separates from the body. I already told you that when the mind is present in the body is sentient. The mind is not present in the body is not sentient. And therefore, mind basically, so definitely mind moves away. Then there is a cause also we'll be seeing. So if the relationship is basically permanent between mind and the body, then the body would never be insentient. And that cannot be the thing. We see the body insentient at the time of death, and therefore definitely the mind has moved away. There is a physical separation between mind and the body. So they have association and dissociation. Dissociation is death. Dissociation of the mind with the body is death. Association of the mind with the body is rebirth or the birth. And Bhagavan refers to this dissociation, association in Bhagavad Gita also, Vasamsi Jiranani, we talked about it. And so this mind basically drops one body and takes another body and then lives for some time in that body and then drops that body and takes up another body, enters into another physical body. And that's how association, dissociation, association, dissociation. And so mind-body relationship, unlike the mind-Chidabhasa relationship, is temporary. There it is permanent. Here it is temporary. And what causes association, dissociation? Well, karma. So association is of the mind with the body is caused by prarabdha karma. And then, well, prarabdha karma lasts or is over, then mind separates from the physical body. We call it death. Third, mind and Sakshi relationship. So, well, there is no relationship between the mind and the Sakshi. Because Sakshi is like all-pervading space, which is not connected to anything. Space is not connected to anything. Any two limited entities are connected. A limitless entity and a limited entity cannot be connected. And therefore, well, basically, Sakshi is Brahman, all-pervading, well, and mind is a limited entity, well, they cannot be connected. This is one reason, very gross reason actually. But anyway, the second reason is Sakshi, well, belong to the higher order of reality. It is basically Satyam, and the mind is Mithya, lower order of reality, so empirical. So no connection is or the bonding is possible between Satya and Mithya. There is no connection between Satyam and Mithya. And that's how we always give an example. A person, well, in the dream state has earned some money, well, he cannot associate it, that money with the money in the waking state in certain bank, etc. account. So he cannot deposit there. So this is kind of a thing. Satya-Mithya relationship is not possible. And therefore, but well, due to ignore, I mean, here also, same way, no relationship is possible between the Sakshi and the mind. But due to ignorance, well, we make the connection between the Sakshi, the I, the real I already talked to you, and the mind. So I am the Sakshi, I do not have any connection with the mind, but still I definitely place the I and in the mind. Or I, the Sakshi, I connect it. Due to self-ignorance, I connect it to the mind. Mind has no connection to the Sakshi, but I connect to the mind, and whatever may be the condition of the mind, well, I say it is my condition. Because there is a self-ignorance, I don't know, I am a Sakshi. So, therefore, I say I am disturbed, I am happy, well, etc., etc., I am angry, whatever. So, I am jealous. In all these expressions, well, definitely I am connecting I, the Sakshi, with the mind because of the delusion. That's how they call as a Bhranti Jatadatmyam. So the whole Vedanta basically is about knowing that I do not have any connection with the mind. Therefore, that is what it is. So basically, it's an error to tell yourself as I mean, to tell yourself as a mind is an error, and that error has to be corrected. So condition of the mind cannot make me a samsari, basically. I do not have this knowledge, and so I feel connected to the mind and jumping to the tunes of the mind, we can see. So throughout the life, well, I am trying to satisfy this unsatisfiable mind. Well, it's all because I have connection, bonded with this mind due to delusion, Bhranti Jatadatmya. Not Sakshi has no connection with anything. Sakshi has no connection with anything because there is no other thing to connect to the Sakshi. That's the reality. Don't imagine any other thing. Don't imagine any other thing. That there is another thing. And Sakshi also is there, but there is no connection. That's a wrong way of going. It's a wrong way of going. Because moment you say that there is another thing, Sakshi is not a Brahman. Definitely not Brahman. If Sakshi happens to be Brahman, there cannot be anything other than Brahman. All-pervading thing. So basically, definitely, this is how we have to, therefore there is no other thing to connect to. And therefore, mind, etc., all just, we are going to see in the samsara. Mind, etc., is just born of this Maya only. It is all Mayikam, it's all Mithya. And Maya, of course, is non-separate from Brahman. So Brahman appears in the form of this mind, etc. That's simply an appearance. So connection between the Sakshi, that is real, and the mind is delusion-based, Bhranti. And this 19th chapter of this Upadesha Sahasri, called Atma Mana Sambhada also, Prakranam, is a dialogue to the mind. So how does the Jnani look at the mind objectively? As an unconnected Sakshi, well, basically, how does Jnani have a chat with this mind is a subject matter there in the 19th chapter of Upadesha Sahasri. So basically, but generally, the samsari, the person who is ignorant, he never understands that I am a Sakshi, and therefore he doesn't look upon the mind as objectively, but get involved with this mind, and the condition of mind, well, becomes the condition of that person, and then life becomes miserable. So this is how mind Chidabhasa connection, natural. Mind-body connection basically is due to karma. Well, it's not permanent. And mind-Sakshi connection is not there at all. It's due to delusion. A connection between any Satyam and Mithya is Bhranti. Simply. And the Bhranti goes only by knowledge. Understanding Satyam as a Satyam, Mithya as a Mithya. That's it. The delusion between, the confusion between Satyam and Mithya is a samsara. And the knowledge is understanding Satyam as Satyam, Mithya as a Mithya. We call it as a Viveka Jnanam. Anyway, so this is where the three seers were introduced, consisting consisting. I mean, the individual which is consisting of these three individual seers in first five verses, and then author also talked about the formation and function of all these three seers: sense organs, the mind, and the sakshi. And the sakshi, well, by its presence, we have discussed this also, blesses the mind, and that blessing of the sakshi is nothing but the formation of a chidanasa in the mind. And here, blessing and illumining and all these things are has no meaning at all, even though they are verbs. But those verbs, really speaking, do not do the job of a verb. We should understand very well. And therefore, even we say for asti, bhati, etc. also, even the bhati is a verb, and asti also is a verb. But they, really speaking, those verbs are not verbs, but they are basically nouns. So asti means just existence. Bhati means just shines or reveals. That's a consciousness. And therefore here also we have discussed perhaps before, I don't remember, but the sakshi never does any job of illumining the mind and senses, etc. etc. Basically mind. It doesn't do. Sakshi, basically remains in its own glory. It illumines, it is shining on its own. In its presence, the mind, which has come out through the Maya from the same consciousness, well, becomes conscious. Becomes conscious. So we can't become conscious also is not true. As it comes out, it is conscious only. As it resolves also, it is conscious only. Because mind, the nature of mind is such which cannot be, away. It cannot be free from it cannot be without consciousness. And therefore, but we say like that the sakshi illumines the mind. There is, really speaking, there is no action on the part of a sakshi. So sun, as we discussed earlier also, sun never illumines the world. So sun shines, that's the thing. And in its presence the Jagat shines. Or Jagat shines after. That is why Bhati and Anubhati are there. Bhati Anubhati reveals clearly what it is. Therefore, sun, basically, we have to say Suryaha Prakashate. Sun shines. Suryaha Prakashayati is a wrong thinking. Is a wrong thinking. Sun never illumines anything. Sun being self-shining, in its presence, what is around shines. But sometimes we say sun illumines the earth, which is not a reality. Same way the consciousness, which is self-shining, self-illumining, in its presence the non-separate mind. Understand, non-separate mind. There is no physical distance. Please kindly don't think of any physical distance between mind and all-pervading sakshi. Immediately when I'm saying this, I can imagine that you are also imagining that there is a mind, there is a consciousness sakshi here, and it is anyway, but the sakshi illumines on its own and self-shining, and the mind, it comes nearby and then illumined. Never. All-pervading sakshi. All-pervading sakshi. Mind is non-separate. As it comes out through Maya, how it comes out, we'll be seeing that it is conscious. That's it. This, any kind of an imagination well, will not bring home the message the teacher wants to convey. That's the thing. So this is, well, definitely everything is non-separate. Everything is and shines, means it is pervaded by consciousness, pervaded by the existence Sat. So as you say the pan is, it means it is pervaded by consciousness. Without consciousness, keeping consciousness at some place and keeping pan outside the boundary of consciousness, there is nothing like that. There is nothing which is besides consciousness. There is nothing which is beyond consciousness. There is nothing which is other than consciousness. Try to think of anything without this Satchit. Impossible. The very fact that you are able to think, create a concept, is based in consciousness, which is ever existence. And therefore I said in this Sunday also, the meaning of the word consciousness is the meaning of the word existence. Sat. The meaning of the word existence is the meaning of the word consciousness. When you say is, definitely consciousness, 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 consciousness. When you say consciousness, 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 meant it is ever is. Ever is. So Sat is Chit. Chit is such in which everything is based. That's how it is Ananta, including the space. And therefore, definitely, this Chidavasa, the consciousness, the Sakshi, blesses the mind with Chidavasa, and mind with this Chidavasa, becomes the seer, and that mind with the Chidavasa, which is seer number 2, blesses the sense organ with the Chidavasa, of course, and that becomes a seer number 1. And the ultimate seer is seer number 3, that is Sakshi. So that is how the individual is consisting of 3 seers: the Sakshi, the conscious mind, and the conscious sense organs. And the mind and sense organs are conscious, not blessed by the Sakshi. I'm sorry, sense organs are not conscious, blessed by the Sakshi, blessed by the Chidavasa itself. Mind, of course, is conscious due to blessing of Sakshi. This is how we have to see. And of course, body also becomes conscious, sentient due to Chidavasa. And therefore, so thereafter the mind, the seer, alone goes through these 3 states of experience. The mind which is blessed by the Sakshi, endowed with the Chidavasa now, it undergoes 3 states of experience. A fully passive mind, definitely experiences deep sleep state. A partially active, partially passive mind, experiences the dream state. And the fully active mind experiences waking. So, when the mind is fully active, the sense organ also join the mind. So, they do not stay as separate seer. So, the mind and the sense organ together experience the waking state, experience the world. Then the author said, when one talks about this mind, one should remember both the parts of the mind, the substantial part and the thought part. Both of them receive Chidavasa, and together they go through 3 states of experience. So what we call life is nothing but this mind constantly going through the one state of experience or the other. In one state, the mind experiences the external world, and in another state the mind experiences the internal world. And in between these 2 experiences, there is a temporary rest. So waking and dream, in between a temporary rest. And so this is the discussion of the verse 6 to 12, and then author adds a point in the last verse called 12th verse, that not only the mind goes through these 3 states, the very same mind goes to the next birth also. So the mind is a part of the bigger parent body called the subtle body, which enlivens this gross body, makes it sentient. Being subtle body, because it is conscious due to the Chidavasa which is present there, and Chidavasa will be present all the time, and so the subtle body is always endowed with the Chidavasa present in the gross body, makes the gross body also sentient or conscious. And the subtle body has these 17 parts, and the mind happens to be one of the important components of this subtle body. So subtle body along with the mind, at the time of death, leaves the physical body and takes another physical body as per the karma, and goes through the 3 states of experience in that body. So basically the seer number 1, the sense organs, and the seer number 2, the mind, in the form of a subtle body, travel from body to body, because The sense organs also is part of subtle body. Mind also is a part of subtle body. The seer number 1, seer number 2, both together. They travel from body to the body. The seer number 3, the Sakshi, does not travel, need not travel, and cannot travel, being all pervading and available everywhere. Everything is based in the Sakshi ultimately. So, when it is said that this Jivatma travels from one loka to another, this travel refers to the subtle body, which is conscious, therefore Jiva, because of the Chidabhasa present there. So there is a travel of, we can say here in our language, it's a travel of a seer number 1 and seer number 2 together. Sense organs in the mind. They call Jivatma, we call ego, or we sometimes, some acharyas just say Chidabhasa. Some acharya says mind, some acharya says it is ahankara. It's one and the same thing. This is referred on the Bhagavad Gita as na jayate mriyate, etc. This subtle body, the jiva travels, but the sakshi never travels because it cannot travel. And it need not travel. And also it doesn't travel, being all pervading. Where does the space travel? Space cannot travel. So Vedanta is basically the shifting this, from seer number 1 and seer number 2. Placing the I in the seer number 1 and seer number 2 is a samsara. When placing the I in the seer number 3, the sakshi, is the jnana, atma jnana. So until that shift takes place, the cycle of birth and death continues. Continues for whom? That's a question. Continues for whom? Continues for Atma. If it is Atma is Satchidananda, there cannot be a travel. Then there is another Atma called Jivatma that travels, but there is no Jivatma which is really I. And therefore even the travel also is equally a delusion on your part. That there is a birth. Please understand this. Some people say, okay, but if I don't know, then means I travel. They say like this. They really miss the boat. They say, you say Atma is Satchidananda, it doesn't travel, it cannot travel, it need not travel. But then suppose if I don't know, then I, the Atma, will travel. And if I know, my travel will stop. It's a wrong thinking. The very fact that if you take yourself as a jiva itself is a delusion. If you take yourself as a Chidabhasa itself is a delusion. If you take yourself as a subtle body, the mind itself is a delusion. And then the subtle body travels, you say I travel. The taking of the subtle body as the self is delusion, and therefore the travel of the subtle body also is equally a delusion on your part, saying that I travel. You should understand that I, in really speaking, the seer number 3, the Sakshi, basically does not travel. So this is not true. Please understand. If I don't know, I will take birth. It's a wrong thinking. If I don't know, I will definitely travel. No. If you don't know, you will misunderstand the Atma, and that is Chidabhasa. And Chidabhasa is going to travel. Who says you travel? Well, sun says that, oh, I am traveling. Why? Because that mirror is traveling. That we have to tell to sun, you don't travel. Drop the notion that you are reflection. That's it. Drop the notion. The very taking of the reflection as oneself on the part of the sun is wrong. Is wrong. And therefore the travel also which belongs to the reflection is also wrong. Taking oneself as I am traveling. Sun should not have done the first mistake. Taking the reflection as oneself. Reflection will not stop to travel. Will not. Because the medium travels. When medium travels, reflection will travel. So subtle body will travel. Then the Chidabhasa also will travel. And you say, I am Chidabhasa, or I am mind, I am ego, etc., whatever. A sense of individuality, placing your I sense into the mind. Then mind travels. So you say, I also travel. Really speaking, the I, which is in reality, in this mixture, is the Sakshi alone, which we know now, everything doesn't travel. So you should know you don't travel. That's the solution. You don't travel. You don't take birth. That much you should know. And that is what has been told by Bhagavan. Na jayate, na mriyate. So please remove this notion. If I don't know, I travel. Means there is a really janma of Atma. Please understand. There is real death of Atma if Atma doesn't know. Wrong thinking. It's a wrong thinking. Whether you know it or not, Atma never travels. Misunderstanding the Atma as Anatma. Anatma travels and then you say, well, I also travel. So Jnanam is nothing but dropping the notion. Shifting, as I told you. Shifting from seer number 1 plus seer number 2. Your eye sense in seer number 1 and seer number 2. Sense organs and the mind. To seer number 3. Which is the reality. And therefore, so the mind sense organ bundle value is called subtle body. It goes through these 3 states of experience. And when the individual is alive also, and after death it lives and take another birth. So basically taking yourself as that I am a waker also is the same mistake. Taking yourself as I am a dreamer is the same mistake. Mind will have these 3 states when a person is alive. Mind will have 3 states. The conscious mind, well, fully conscious mind will definitely pervade the gross body also, and therefore it is called Vishwam. It's called Vishwam. And then partially conscious mind, partially active, partially passive mind will have a dream state, and fully passive mind means will have a deep sleep state. So basically, just as you take yourself to be having a birth and death is a notion on your part, well, to take yourself as a waker, dreamer and deep sleeper also is equally a notion. Same notion. Conscious mind, well, basically leaves the body, enters into another body, get associated with another body, and that's called Janma. Dissociation with this body is called death. And so since you say yourself as a mind, seer number 1, seer number 2, whatever, so then you say, well, definitely I am having a birth, I am having a death. So therefore, I am a Jiva itself is a notion. And then travel of Jiva will be further notion. Further notion. Taking yourself as a Jiva is a notion, and then saying that I travel. Let's put that way, that's better. So taking yourself as this mind is a notion, and then you say I will definitely take birth, etc. also is a notion. So na jayate mriyate va indicates your present condition, not future condition. When you are approaching as a pramata, the knower to this Bhagavad Gita say you don't take birth. Suppose because you don't know, Atma is Satchidananda, then they should say na janishyati na marishyati. When you will know the Atma, you will not be born. It's all in present tense. Under the state of ignorance also, you are not born, you are not having any death. Better understand that. Better assimilate that. And what is subject to birth and death, don't tell it as I. That's it. Not that I will not be born, I will not die. Most of the Vedantis talk like this. Most of the Vedantis. If I get Jnanam, then I will not be born. There is nothing like that. Otherwise, Bhagavan should have talked in a future tense, because this fellow has just started learning Bhagavad Gita. He doesn't know. So Bhagavan should say, well, when you know this entire Bhagavad Gita and you assimilate the knowledge, then na janishyati, na marishyati. So this is, I was never born, I am not born, and I will not be born. That is me. I had never died. I will not die. That is the knowledge. Not that, oh, earlier I definitely I had gone through several births and deaths, but now I will not be, having birth or death. That's a wrong understanding. It's a wrong understanding. Not really knowing the nature of I. You, the I, the Sakshi, which is all pervading, which is free from the time, has no birth, no death. Just correct the mistake. Don't tell which is anatma as atma. Atasmin tad buddhi. Atasmin tad buddhi. So what is not that taken as a that. What is not that is taken as a that. That's called a dhyasa. Atasmin tad buddhi. So basically, I is free from birth and death. I is free from the effect of time, effect of a place. I is free from all attributes. You are that. At this moment, when you are saying I am going to take a birth, etc., at that time also, really the I never takes a birth. Only it's an error on your part. That something is really taking birth and death, and you place the sense of I in that, instead of placing the I sense in something which is really the Atma. And therefore, so please remove this notion. Swamiji, when will I come to know? If I really know, then only I will not be born. That's not knowledge. That's not knowledge. Most of the people say this. Swamiji, I also want to get rid of this, birth and death cycle, but I don't know this. I don't know this. So means if I don't know, I'm going to really be born. That I is never born. Non-I is born. Non-I is born. I'm repeating again and again because I have heard several times. Swamiji, please pray for me. I don't want to get birth again. But if I really don't know this, then I will be born. So that's a misplaced I. What is non-I is taken as I. Non-I will be born. Non-I will undergo the death. That is what the nature of the creation is. Antavanta ime dehaha nityasya ukta sharirina. Antavanta ime dehaha antavantah. They will go through the 6 states. Vikara. Unmanifest to manifest. In between these all states are there. We'll see that. So anyway, basically, the mind sense organ bundle called the subtle body goes through the 3 states of experience. The waking, etc. also, when the individual is alive. And after death also, well, it lives and takes another birth. So death is a dissociation of the subtle body from the physical body, and birth is an association of the subtle body with the physical body. And when I say subtle body, please keep in your mind conscious subtle body. Subtle body all the time associated with the Chidabhasa. So even though I say just subtle body, don't think. You can replace my word of a subtle body by Jiva, by ego, by Ahankara, by just Chidabhasa also. Anyway, and so Sakshi never leaves or goes anywhere, just like a space not vacating the house when the occupants of the house vacate the house. So the cycle of birth and death has been going on from beginningless time. So Sakshi is present in a dead body, I told you before. Due to that, this dead body also has an existence. So dead body is that existence is Sakshi only. But the dead body is not conscious or ascension because the mind has left. Please understand. Dead body, because if dead body has no Sakshi, well, how all-pervading Sakshi then? How all-pervading Sakshi? All-pervading Sakshi is present in inert and sentient both. But the Sakshi cannot make a given thing conscious or sentient unless there is a subtle body. So one subtle body, the mind lives. That's how I said the gross body is conscious not due to Sakshi. It's due to Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa which is present in the mind. Mind pervades the body. Along with that, Chidabhasa pervades the body. And that is how the body is sentient. So, Sakshi definitely requires a subtle body. It has to manifest in a subtle body and as a Chidabhasa. And through that, the gross body also becomes conscious or sentient. But definitely, Sat is there, very much there. And therefore, the dead body is also the Sakshi, Brahman only. But it is just in the form of a Sat. But Swamiji, if it is then consciousness is not there, then we say like this, ultimately, that even the dead body also is pervaded by consciousness, because dead body consciousness is. And therefore, it is pervaded by consciousness. But the dead body is dead body because the consciousness cannot manifest there. Otherwise, we will call it as a live body, sentient body, etc. So the cycle of birth and death basically has been going on from beginningless time and will go on endlessly unless the individual, who is a mixture of these three seers, understands that seer number 1 and seer number 2 are pseudo-seers. They are really not. Because the seer number 2, the mind, is conscious, and that's how we call it as a seer. Well, because of Chidabhasa present. The sense organ, the seer number 1, is all, we call it as a seer of the world. Well, because the Chidabhasa is present. So they are really pseudo-seers. They are not by nature seer. Due to Chidabhasa, they are seer. And Sakshi ultimately is the seer. And therefore, these two seers, basically they are pseudo-seers in other way also. The mind is seer also and seen also. The sense organs are seer also of the world and seen also from the standpoint of a mind. Mind is a seer of the sense organs and mind is also seen from the standpoint of a Sakshi. And therefore, ultimately, what is really the seer by nature cannot be the seen. What is really the seen can never be the seer. We use this word knower known. In other words, what is known always. What is knower is knower. But if anything is knower and known both, it's a pseudo. It's really not there. Anyway, so the mind and sense organs themselves arise from this Sakshi, the consciousness, and they become conscious. Means they are endowed with the Chidabhasa. Both are mithya. So in this individual called I, there is the mixture of three seers. Seer number 1, seer number 2, and the Sakshi, seer number 3. The really Sakshi alone is a seer. Sakshi alone is the reality of the I. The other two are mithya. That's called Ahankara Sakshi Viveka. One who says I am Sakshi, he has dropped seer number 1 and seer number 2. And basically seer number 2. He has dropped. He has done a separation. Not physical separation. He has done a cognitive separation between what is mithya and what is satyam. And therefore, that I is always Sakshi. You cannot place I anywhere else other than the Sakshi. And then if you still commit a mistake of placing I somewhere else, due to self-ignorance, you have to correct that mistake. Correcting the mistake is Vedanta. That's it. Placing the I where it should be. That's it. Nothing else. We call it as a knowledge of a reality. Knowledge of a reality of I is this Sakshi alone. That's the thing. So with this verse, the verse number 12, the author concludes the discussion of the formation and function of three seers. And then author enters into the main topic of this text called cause of a samsara and solution to the samsara. So we will have a third group now. We have discussed two groups, verse number 5, 1 to 5, and verse number 6 to 12. So verse number 1 to 5, well, they have enumerated three seers. Verse number 6 to 12, formation and function of these three seers. And verse number 13 to 21 will be a analysis of the cause of samsara and the remedy for that. So we'll take up the third group, 13 to 21. We have to reach ultimately to verse number 23. Still some time is there with us. So author wishes to establish the existence of establish the ignorance as the cause of samsara, ignorance of self. So self-ignorance of one's own composition, well, that is, one is a mixture of three seers, in which two are mithya and one is satyam, and that the sakshi, which is satyam, is my nature, is the cause, and not understanding that, well, is the cause of a samsara. Misplacing, I told you, what is mithya is taken as satyam, what is satyam is totally ignored, and therefore that's kind of confusion, well, is a cause of a samsara. But who is responsible for self-ignorance? You say that is okay, samsara is basically due to self-ignorance. But then who is responsible? What is responsible for self-ignorance? Well, the author points out that Maya is a responsible. Once the topic of Maya comes, then the topic of Ishvara comes, because Maya and Ishvara goes together. Maya and Ishvara goes together, and then Maya comes and Ishvara comes, then Ishvara comes, then the cause of the creation also comes. Creation comes into the picture. So topic of of this creation is also briefly presented, so that the Maya can be introduced. So Maya leading to ignorance, and ignorance causing the samsara problem. That this is the line of discussion between verse number 13 to 21. So 13 to 21 will have these topics: creation, Maya, ignorance, and samsara. That's an order of analysis also. So now we'll have to see. We'll start with the first topic. 4 topics are there, right? Creation, Maya, ignorance, samsara. What is creation? First topic, between verse 13 to 21. Creation can be defined as the effect, production of an effect, or product from a cause. That's called creation. So when an effect is produced basically out of a cause, what happens? What is the mechanism? Then if we understand the mechanism from cause to effect, we understand the process of creation. That's how it is. So what is the mechanism? Words cause, effect, etc. are normally used very loosely actually. So let's take an example. Our standard example is of, let's take an example of a potter who makes a varieties of the earthenware, pot, jug, etc. out of the lump of a clay. So clay is said to be the cause, and the varieties of the earthenware basically are said to be the effect. So we say the potter has produced, created, or made many pots. So the author asks this question, that when one says the potter created this earthenware, what has the potter created? That's a question. On inquiry, we find that potter has not created anything. Really speaking, potter has not created anything. In fact, nobody can create anything. That's what scientists also say. Matter can never be created or destroyed. law of conservation. And therefore we also say nothing can be created. So Potter has also not created a pot. Definitely not. So Potter has not produced even a ounce of matter called clay. He has not produced any substance at all. So previously there was clay, now also there is a clay, and also the same amount of clay, and therefore, the Potter has not created, really speaking, a pot. Then why do we say Potter has created a pot? That's what we use in a language. Potter has created a pot. So we come to know them. Then if we understand, if we are able to answer this question, we will be able to understand the creation, mechanism of the creation. So creation of a pot by the potter is nothing but adding a shape to the already existing clay. Adding a shape. And so the potter cannot and does not produce anything, and all his efforts are basically to add a shape to the wet clay. So before shaping there was a clay, and after shaping also there is only clay. Before shaping we were calling it as a clay. When the shape is given, the very same clay in a same amount is given a new name called pot. That's what it is. So what has Potter done is he has not produced anything. He has given a rupam. Shape means a rupam, form. And when he creates a particular shape, he adds a name also to that. And so basically, either if he is giving a particular shape, then he says this is pot, name, etc. So addition of the varieties of the names and forms by the potter to the substance called clay is called creation. Addition of the varieties of the names and forms to the substance clay by the potter is called creation. Really speaking, the potter has not produced an ounce of a clay. Potter has produced a pot. Potter has produced a pot. No. Potter has not produced a pot. Potter has just added a form to the already existing clay, to the substance. So addition of this configuration to a substance value is called creation. So cause clay plus addition of a particular name and form is creation. Clay plus name and form is equal to earthenware. So, and that particular name and form is a contribution of the potter. To create a particular form, there is a desire. To create a particular form, he has a knowledge. To create a particular form, he has a power. Nimitta karanam. Ichha kriya jnana shakti. That's it. Why would he gives a particular shape? Because he knows. Why he is giving a particular form to a substance called clay? Because he knows that this form will have this usage. So wood plus name and form is equal to furniture. Cause plus addition of name and form is called production of an effect. That is where contribution of potter is there. So depending upon his ichha, his will, he gives a particular shape. Depending upon his knowledge of the shape, has a particular usage, etc. And how to give that shape, everything. Skill, etc. That's also a contribution of a potter. And potter also has a power to run the wheel and putting the clay and everything. So anyway, so this is a lesson number 1 in a mechanism of a creation, the first topic. Then the next lesson here in this topic of creation, that the potter does not produce anything but that he gives only a shape, which we said. The next question we will first ask and then we will add that topic. The next question that is asked is, from where does the shape come? You know very well, but we are going little systematically. Where does the potter bring the shape to the clay? From where? From where does the shape come? Well, shape is really not added to the potter by the potter. All shapes are already present in the clay itself. This is where we differ from Nayayikas. We and Sankhyas are Hindi Chini bhai bhai. You know, we and Sankhyas believe this, that we are called Satkaryavadis. The karyam, the effect, is already present. Sat is already present in the cause. Nayayikas say no. They are called Asatkaryavadis. The effect is not present in the cause. Effect is really created. It's produced. Because they are basically, the Parmanuvadis. So they say the creation which is made up of 5 elements, those 5 elements in the state of a dissolution are present in the form of atoms. And that not all 5, 4. They consider Akasha is Nityam. Akasha is Nityam. Akasha is not created. Akasha cannot be dissolved. It's a Nityam. Other than Akasha, the 4 elements, air, water, fire and earth, right now it is there in a gross form, but at the time of dissolution they go back to the state of atoms. And then at the time of creation the atoms unite. 2 atoms of a earth element unite, becomes a dyad. Then 3 dyads unite to become a triad. Then those triads again unite to become a further. And that is how the gross earth comes. That's how the gross water comes, gross air, gross fire comes. And from there then this creation has come. Therefore this creation which is in a manifest state was not there in the time of dissolution, because they were just atoms. And they say all these atoms, definitely of varieties of the elements, hang in this Akasha, which is Nityam, at the time of dissolution. But then who brings a earth atom, one earth atom and another earth atom to join? Ishvara. Ishvara is simply a Nimitta Karanam. And he unites these 2 earth atoms to make a dyad. Then he unites 3 dyads to form a triad. That is his job. He is a Nimitta Karanam. They call it as a Tatastha Karanam. Tatastha Ishvara. Tatastha. He is a Tatastha. He does not take part in the creation because he is not a material. We have Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam. They say Ishvara is basically Nimitta Karanam. Nimitta Karanam, they call it as a Tatastha Ishvara. And therefore they are Asatkaryavadi. The creation which you are seeing was not there in the time of dissolution. We and Sankhyas believe this creation basically was there in a unmanifest form. Right? And that is what Bhagavan also says. Avyaktat Vyaktaya Sarva. Prabhavanti Aharagame Ratragame Praliyante. Or Avyaktadini Bhutani Vyaktamadhyani Bharata in 2nd chapter. Avyaktadini Bhutani Vyaktamadhyani Avyakta Nidhanani, etc. And therefore, so this spherical shape, etc., all the shapes basically are already present in the clay itself. The spherical clay basically has all geometrical shapes in potential form, and spherical shape is nothing but all shapes in unmanifest form. That's how we have a Ishvara is in the form of a lingam. So lingam means a spherical shape from which all the forms, all the shapes have come. And so, uh, and even you have seen the dough also, you know that your flour you make, from that you make a dough, and from there only you give varieties of the shape the way you want. Actually, you can give any shape. It's amazing that suppose if you take away, I mean, you have already made a chapati, means you have not, I mean, roasted, but you have just made it, and now you decide that this chapati is, well, we will make it fresh tomorrow, and I have already made it, but nobody is going to consume it. So you again roll back into a spherical form. That's amazing. Any form, you ultimately make it resolve into a spherical form, and from a spherical form, all the form comes. That's how we say. So the spherical wet clay will be in that all the earthenwares, varieties of the forms, right? Varieties of the shapes are present. That's how we say. Anyway, so clay contains all names and forms of earthenware in potential conditions. We call potential names and forms avyakta namarupa. So potter does not do anything to the substance clay, but only brings the unmanifest names and forms into manifestation with his desire, with his knowledge, and with his power. Right, this much. So nothing is produced including name and form. Substance plus unmanifest name and form is called the cause. The same substance plus the manifest name and form is called effect. So then what is the benefit of the efforts of the potter? Well, we say he has neither created the clay nor he has created name and form, because name and form are unmanifest. It is present in the clay itself. He has only changed the unmanifest name and form into manifest name and form. And this name and form manifestation, name and form transformation from unmanifest to the manifest is called creation. So creation is a manifestation of this name and form upon the substance, which substance remains the same before and after the manifestation. This is lesson number 2. Lesson number 1 is what? Cause plus addition of name and form is effect. And basically lesson number 2 is this, that creation is nothing but the manifestation of name and form upon the substance. Substance remains the same before the names and form manifest, and remains same even after the manifestation of name and form. Okay, this is regarding the example. What about this creation of the universe? We'll have to wait. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.